So the way I'm going to start this makeup application is going to be by brushing all of the brow hairs up and out of the way using the Sosu brow mascara. This is a clear brow gel and it's literally just to get the hairs up off of the eye space. So then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be starting out by carving out a line underneath the eyebrow to really structure the brow using a Helene HE5 brush and P. Louise Roomy Base shade 4. When I'm doing this, I always like to stamp rather than drag in order to get the neatest possible line for when I come to do the brows later on. It's just going to really make it easier for yourself when it comes to actually doing the brows. And as you can see here, I like to use rather the side of my brush over the top of my brush so you can really get that flat edge. Then what I'm doing here is I'm starting to drag that product down a little bit over the lid. I'm not going to bring it right the way down onto the actual eyelid because we're actually going to remove all the product from that area anyway later when it comes to cutting the crease. So it really just prevents the eye from getting too cakey and the base from being too thick. Once I've done this and found an area where I like it to come down to, I will then take a fluffy brush and start to buff out the underneath line. You can use any fluffy brush, but on this occasion I'm going to be using the Crown Brush C511. When I do this, I'm really careful to avoid that top line right near the eyebrow so it remains as neat as possible. So for my first shadow, I'm going to be applying it using a Pro Brushes small white fluffy blending brush. And the eyeshadow I'm using is Punch. This is from the CLE X Sosu Bear and Bougie palette. I'm applying this in really light motions, kind of pressing my brush on with the shadow and wiggling it onto the eye. And I like to start out with one of my darker shades so that the pigmentation sticks right to the base rather than adding powder on powder on powder. So what you can see that I'm doing here is actually really building up the shape of how the eye is going to look later. So you can see I'm applying this just above the crease. I like to apply it above the crease so therefore when it actually comes to cutting the crease later on you can still see this shade. So what I'm doing here is once I've actually dragged my shadow out, I'm bringing it back in towards the eye to create that blown out effect. So now that I'm happy with the shape, I'm going to be going in with a Morphe M514 brush and the shade Not Your Bailey, which is also from the CLE X Sosu Bear and Bougie palette. I'm running this really lightly over our previous shade, just back and forth in window wiping motions, as we are going to put another shade on top, so I'm just focusing on blending the two shades together and not actually blending the pink up into the base. So once I'm happy with how everything is blended, I'm then just going to go back in with the punch shade. You'll see me do this in a second, using the small fluffy blending brush again, and just really deepen up our previous shade where we've lost any of the pigmentation due to blending over the top using the pink. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking our MAC 221 brush and the shade Peach Days from the Sosu XCLE Bare and Bougie palette again, and just buffing that over the top to create the ultimate fade into the eye base. So again, once I'm happy with my blend, I'm just going to go back in with our previous shades and really build them all up, making sure we haven't lost any of the previous colours. So for this next step, I'm just going to be deepening up our previous shades in order to add a lot of contrast so that when we come to cutting the crease, there is a defined line between our dark shadows and the light base we're going to use on the cut crease. For this, I'm using the Molly O'Brien MO8 brush and the shade Reckless from the Stacey Marie XB Perfect Carnival XL Pro palette. And I'm just adding this underneath all of our previous shades in the exact same shape that we've already built up. So now what I'm doing, this is kind of like pre-cutting the crease before I actually go in and use a base to cut the crease. To do this, I'm going to be using Line by Inglot and my HE5 brush by Helene Cosmetics again, that we used earlier on. And what this is doing is this is really removing all of the product underneath where the Line is placed. So that's why I shape it like I'm cutting the crease so that it takes off the product from underneath, and then when it comes to applying that light base, it doesn't actually then mix in with the previous shadows used. So once I'm content with the shape created using the Line, I will then take a baby wipe, pull the lid down and remove the remainder of the product across the eye, and this is really going to pick everything up, leaving a dry, clean base for your concealer. The concealer I'm going to use, which you'll see now to cut the crease, is going to be the P. Louise base in the shade 0.5. So the brush that I'm using to actually create the cut crease and apply the base is going to be the Master Stroke Pro Art Series 6-1 number 6 brush. I'm actually just going to write that in text on the screen now, as I know it is a very long name. This you can just order off eBay. It is a paintbrush, but I think they're only around £3.50 and they are so thin and precise. So what I'm doing here is I'm beginning to take a fluffy brush, the one that we used earlier to blend out the base, and kind of do the same thing but through the cut crease. I'm picking up the excess base that we used to cut the crease and then blending it into the outside edge. After I've done this, you're going to see me go in using the same brushes as previous with the same previous shades that we used to create the cut crease and blend them back in. So the next thing you're going to see me do is take a Makeup by Paula flat shader brush, which is kind of just a really dense packed flat brush, and I'm going to be setting over the white base that we used using the P. Louise palette, the original one in the shade Trippin'. So my next step in the makeup application is going to be creating the cartoon liner. For this, all I'm literally going to do is take the NYX Liquid Matte Black Liner and just create two lines. One going up into the crease and one lining the lash band. The reason why I line the bottom of the lashes and don't just leave them is so that when I actually come to applying my false lashes, we get a really seamless blend in from the false lashes to your natural lashes. So then what you're going to see me do here is come on with the lashes and measure them to Kira's eye to check if they need trimming or whether we can just straight up apply them. The lashes that I'm actually using here are a set of Sosu X CLE Makeup CLE lashes. Whenever applying my lashes, I always get my client to look down so that the eye isn't completely closed, and this way you'll get the maximum stick so that the eye isn't scrunched up or anything, it's kind of in its natural shape so that when the lashes go on, they stick perfectly. What I'm doing here is I'm going to take my base shade 4 again and the Helene HE5 brush and start to carve down the side to really give us that winged out look. So I've based under the eye using just a really thin layer of the P. Louise base again, and then I'm going to be taking a MAC 212 brush. This was the first ever brush I actually bought, just a little fun fact. And I'm going to be taking Deep Sea from the CLE Makeup X Sosu Azure Allure palette, and I'm going to be running that along the lash line and kind of out. Then I'm just going to be taking a Molly O'Brien flat brush and the shade Charm from the original P. Louise palette and filling in the space in between the top shadow and the bottom shadow. Once I've done this, I'm just going to take Ingot's White Gel AMC liner and run that through the waterline. So now that we have completed the eye look, I'm just going to start to prep the face. For this, I'm going to be first wiping over the surface of the skin using just a baby wipe to really cleanse and take off any oils or excess makeup that may be left on the skin. And then I'm going to go in using a kabuki brush and the Bobbi Brown vitamin enriched face base. Then I'm going to be taking the Revolution Conceal and Define Foundation. I really love this foundation for a full coverage skin and it's super affordable. And to apply it, I'm just going to use a spatula out of the pot and then I'll be taking a blank canvas F05 brush to really pat that in all over the skin. My next step after applying the foundation is going to be applying a cream contour. For this, the product I'm using is the Barry M All Night Long Concealer in the shade 6, and I'm just going to apply that to the forehead and underneath the cheekbone and then buff it out using a Crown Brush C525 brush, which you'll see me using now. Then with the excess product, I like to run it underneath the nose and under the chin to really warm up the whole face. Once I'm really happy with how all the cream contour is blended out, I'm then going to take the Peggy Sage Luminous Skin Concealer in the shade 2 and apply that underneath the eye and really wing it out. I'm going to use the Sosu Beauty Blender to pat that in, as I find this gives the most flawless coverage and flawless finish for underneath the eyes. Once I'm really happy with how everything overall is blended, I'm then going to take another Sosu Beauty Blender and the Makeup Forever Ultra Matte HD Loose Powder and bake underneath the eyes. Once I've baked underneath the eyes, I'm going to then bake on top of the forehead, just above the brow, but never going over our cream contours. I'm going to set the cream contours using the Peggy Sage limited edition Angles contour brush, which you'll see me pick up now, and then MAC Dark Golden Mineralized Skin Finish, and really pat that over the top of everywhere where we cream contoured. Then what I'm going to do is start to apply blusher. The blusher that I'm using here is by a brand called Jordana, and it's in the shade Touch of Pink. For this, I'm using my favourite blusher brush, which is the Rebel Luna R04 brush, and I'm just applying this to the very front of the contours, over the forehead, and sometimes I'll apply it just on the tip of the nose to really bring the skin back to a lifelike form. Once I've done this, you'll see me go over with a setting spray. The one I'm using here is the NYX Dewy Skin Mist, and then I'm going to apply my highlighter using a Peggy Sage blending brush, and the highlighter I'm going to be using is the Pop Cosmetics Prismatic Pop in the shade Gilded Light. This is the most kind of Instagrammable highlight that I have found. I wouldn't normally use it on clients because it does tend to be very bright and kind of leave a white cast on the skin, but it is absolutely amazing for pictures. I apply this to the top of the cheekbone, just in front of the brow, the top of the lip, so on your cupid's bow, as you can see I'm doing here, and then the tip of the nose and along the bridge, pretty much everywhere. Then for the lips, all I'm going to use is the Sephora brand gloss in the shade Perfect Nude, as I really want to keep it neutral and not too heavy, as the eyes are the main focal point of this makeup look. So now we are pretty much finished up. I'm just going to go back and revisit the brows as we didn't do much them prior. So what I'm going to do is I'm first brushing all the hairs into place using the Sosu Eye Voltage Brow Gel. I really like this one as it's quite wet in texture, so that when I add it on my brow pencil it creates the perfect medium and the pencil just glides on. I'm going to be just filling out the tail end of the brow and then adding hair strokes through the front to thicken it out. And then this is our finished look.